24 most developed countries in Africa. Here is a list of the top 24 most developed and upgraded nations on the African continent out of its 54 total nations. According to each nation's HDI, the most developed nations in Africa will be listed here. The term HDI stands for Human Development Index, which is essentially a metric used to assess the main areas of human progress in a nation. Before we look at the 25 most developed countries in the African continent, please subscribe and turn the notification button of our channel in order to stay connected and notified when we upload a new video. Other factors that combine with HDI to determine the ranking of the most developed nations in Africa include items like the average lifespan in the nation, people's general well-being in the nation, the per capita gross national income, living conditions in a nation, infrastructure and technology, education, and so on. The most developed country on this list is Mauritius. The most developed nation in Africa is Mauritius. Since 2006, the nation has greatly benefited from prudent macroeconomic policies and extensive structural reforms. Despite its tiny size, the country is nevertheless one of the richest in Africa and is included among the top 10 countries in Africa with the most millionaires. Mauritius has an average annual growth of 0.055% with a gross national income per capita of $25,266 and a human development index of 0.802. 2. Seychelles. According to the UN's Human Development Index, Seychelles is the second most developed nation in Africa. Most of the Millennium Development Goals were accomplished by the country. The nation has excellent infrastructure. There were 8 airports with dirt runways and 6 airports with paved runways in this region. Additionally, it is one of the richest nations in Africa. Seychelles has an average annual growth of 0.10% with a gross national income per capita of $26,904 and a human development index of 0.785. 3. Algeria. Another one of the top developed countries in Africa is Algeria. It is in North Africa and has a total population of 43.85 million. The nation has the highest development index of any African nation that is not an island. The third most developed nation in Africa, Algeria, is also the most developed nation in North Africa. Algeria has an average annual growth of 0.30% with a gross national income per capita of $11,174 and a human development index of 0.745. 4. Tunisia. Tunisia is one of the most developed countries in Africa that borders Algeria. It is on the Mediterranean Sea and has a population of 11.82 million. It gained independence from France in 1956 and is currently a middle-income economy. 9% of Tunisia's exports are from the agricultural sector. In addition, it has other little businesses outside tourism. Oil and textiles are also produced there. Tunisia has an average annual growth of 0.14% with a gross national income per capita of $10,414 and a human development index of 0.740. 5. Botswana. Despite having an abundance of resources, Botswana has been able to reinvest resource money to produce steady future income thanks to strong institutional structure. With a GDP per capita of around $70 in the late 60s, Botswana was once amongst the world's poorest nations. Today, it is an upper middle income nation with one of the fastest growing economies. The country is the 5th most developed in Africa and the most developed country in Southern Africa. Botswana has an average annual growth of 0.44% with a gross national income per capita of $16,437 and a human development index of 0.735. 6. Libya. Libya had the greatest human development index of any nation on the continent when Gaddafi was still in power. However, all that changed when the US, NATO and rebels started their heinous and devastating attacks on the Libyan people and their government. They currently rank as Africa's 6th most developed nation. Libya is one of the most developing nations in Africa. It is located in North Africa and is home to 6.871 million people. After gaining independence from Italy in 1951, its economy moved towards the upper middle class. Libya has an average annual growth of 0.26%, with a gross national income per capita of $15,688 and a human development index of 0.724. 7. South Africa. South Africa is an upper middle power in international affairs. It maintains significant regional influence and is a member of both the Commonwealth of Nations and G20. South Africa is the most well-known nation in Africa. It has 59.31 million people living in it. It became independent from Britain in 1961, and since then, its economy has grown to the upper middle income. The key economic sectors in South Africa are manufacturing, wholesale and retail trade, financial services, transport, mining, agriculture, and tourism. South Africa has an average annual growth of 0.50%, with a gross national income per capita of $12,129 and a human development index of 0.713. 8. Egypt. Egypt is a transcontinental nation that is regarded as a medium power globally and as a regional force in North Africa, the Middle East, and the Muslim world. It is in North and Central Africa and has a total population of 102.3 million people. Egypt gained independence from Britain in 1922 and is now an upper middle income economy. Agriculture, the media, petroleum imports, natural gas and tourism are Egypt's key economic drivers. Egypt has an average annual growth of 0.73%, with a gross national income per capita of $11,466 and a human development index of 0.707. 9. Gabon. With a population of 2.226, Gabon is one of the developing nations in Africa and is located in Central Africa. Gabon became an upper middle income country after gaining independence from France in 1960. With the 9th highest HDI in the area and the 5th highest GDP per capita in all of Africa, Gabon is one of the most prosperous nations in sub-Saharan Africa, thanks to its abundant petroleum resources and foreign private investment. It has an average annual growth of 0.56%, with a gross national income per capita of $13,930 and a human development index of 0.703. 10. Morocco. The Kingdom of Morocco has 36.91 million inhabitants located in northern Africa. It became independent from France in 1956 and has an economy with an upper middle income class level. The 10th most developed nation in Africa is Morocco. Morocco has maintained a largely stable and successful state since being independent. It is regarded as a medium power in international affairs and a member of the African Union, the Union for the Mediterranean, and the Arab League. It has the 5th largest economy in Africa and exerts substantial influence in both Africa and the Arab world. It has an average annual growth of 1.14%, with a gross national income per capita of $7,368 and a human development index of 0.686. 11. Cabo Verde. Cape Verde, or Cabo Verde, officially the Republic of Cabo Verde, is an archipelago and island country in the Central Atlantic Ocean, consisting of 10 volcanic islands with a combined land area of about 4,033 square kilometers. Cape Verde is often praised as an example among African nations for its stability and developmental growth, despite its lack of natural resources. It has an average annual growth of 0.25%, with a gross national income per capita of $7,019 and a Human Development Index of 0.648. 12. Namibia. Namibia is a small country of about 2.5 million people, with a long coastline on the South Atlantic, bordering South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, and Angola. It is the driest country in sub-Saharan Africa and is rich in mineral resources, including diamonds and uranium. Political stability and prudent economic management have supported a decrease of poverty and helped Namibia reach upper middle income status. Namibia has an average annual growth of 0.46%, with a gross national income per capita of $9,357 and a Human Development Index of 0.646. 13. Sao Tome and Principe. Sao Tome and Principe, an African island nation close to the equator, is part of a volcano chain featuring striking rock and coral formations, rainforests, and beaches. With a population of about 200,000, Sao Tome and Principe are both the smallest Portuguese-speaking nations in the world and the second smallest sovereign African state after Seychelles. On the Human Development Index, Sao Tome and Principe perform better than the sub-Saharan African average, and the majority of social indicators show significant improvement. In Sao Tome and Principe, all children are enrolled in the educational system. The infant mortality rate has significantly fallen, and the life expectancy has grown to 70 years. The vast majority of people already have access to electricity and piped water. It has an average annual growth of 1.00%, with a gross national income per capita of $3,952 and a Human Development Index of 0.625. 14. Eswatini. Eswatini, officially the Kingdom of Eswatini and formerly named Swaziland, is a landlocked country in southern Africa. It is bordered by Mozambique to its northeast and South Africa to its north, west, south, and southeast. One of the smallest nations in Africa, Eswatini is a developing nation with an economy that is categorized as lower middle income. The agriculture and manufacturing sectors of the economy of the nation provide for the majority of jobs. Eswatini has an average annual growth of 1.57%, with a gross national income per capita of $7,919 and a Human Development Index of 0.611. 15. Ghana. A nation in West Africa called Ghana, which has a population of over 31 million people, is the second most populous nation in West Africa, behind Nigeria. Ghana has had one of the most open and stable administrations on the continent since '93, and it ranks rather well in terms of indicators of access to healthcare, economic growth, and human development. The Ghana Vision 2020 is the goal of Ghana's economic plan. According to this plan, Ghana would become the first developed nation in Africa between 2020 and 2029, and a newly industrialized nation between 2030 and 2039. Ghana has an average annual growth of 0.88%, with a gross national income per capita of $5,269 and a Human Development Index of 0.611. 16. Kenya. Kenya is a country in East Africa with coastline on the Indian Ocean. It encompasses savanna, lakelands, the dramatic Great Rift Valley, and mountain highlands. It's also home to wildlife, like lions, elephants, and rhinos. Kenya is the third most developed nation in East Africa and the 16th most developed nation in the world, with a Human Development Index of 0.601, placing it 143rd out of 189 nations. 16% of Kenyans were living on less than $1.25 per day as of 2021. Kenya is frequently categorized as a frontier market or an emerging market. Kenya has an average annual growth of 0.26%, with a gross national income per capita of $4,244. 17. Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea is a Central African country comprising the Rio Muni mainland and 5 volcanic offshore islands. Its capital, Malabo on Bioko Island, has Spanish colonial architecture and is a hub for the country's prosperous oil industry. Equatorial Guinea, also referred to as EQG, is the only former Spanish colony in sub-Saharan Africa and the 17th most developed country in Africa. Equatorial Guinea graduated from least developed country status in 2017, the only sub-Saharan African nation that managed to do so besides Botswana, and has since then maintained that status. It has an average annual growth of 0.49%, with a gross national income per capita of $13,944 and a Human Development Index of 0.592. 18. Zambia. Zambia, a landlocked nation in southern Africa, is home to a wide variety of animals and has numerous parks and safari locations. Famous Victoria Falls, locally known as Mosi Autunia or Smoke That Thunders, are on Zimbabwe's border and plunge 108 meters into the constrained Batoka Gorge in a mist. Victoria Falls spans the Zambezi River shortly before the falls. Zambia's economy experienced one of the continent's quickest growth rates during the first decade of the 21st century, while Lusaka, the country's capital, experienced the fastest urban growth within the Southern African Development Community. It is not surprising that Zambia reached the list of most developed countries in Africa because the country has a working government and a wealth of natural resources, including minerals, wildlife, forests, fresh water, and arable land. It has an average annual growth of 0.60%, with a gross national income per capita of $3,326 and a Human Development Index of 0.584. 19. Angola. Angola is a country in southern Africa with a diverse landscape that includes sub-Saharan desert that stretches into Namibia, warm Atlantic beaches, and a maze-like network of rivers. The food, which has Portuguese influences, and the country's landmarks are both remnants of its colonial past. Angola has enormous mineral and oil reserves, and its economy is one of the fastest growing in the world, particularly since the end of the Civil War. However, economic development is extremely uneven, with the majority of the country's wealth concentrated in a disproportionately small part of the population. On a scale of 189 nations, Angola is ranked 148th on the Human Development Index. It has an average annual growth of 1.27%, with a gross national income per capita of $6,104 and a Human Development Index of 0.581. 20. Democratic Republic of Congo. The nation, officially known as the Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC in short, except for its 25-mile Atlantic Ocean coastline. With a surface area equivalent to that of the Western Europe, the DRC is the largest country in sub-Saharan Africa. DRC is endowed with exceptional natural resources, including minerals such as cobalt and copper, hydropower potential, significant arable land, immense biodiversity, and the world's second largest rainforest. It has an average annual growth of 0.16%, with a gross national income per capita of $2,879 and a Human Development Index of 0.574. 21. Cameroon. Cameroon on the Gulf of Guinea is a Central African country of varied terrain and wildlife. Cameroon has a young population with a median age of 18.7 years and 41.25% of the population being between 0 to 14 years old. With high birth rates expected to continue, the population is also expected to remain relatively young in the future. The current population of Cameroon is 27,956,116, based on projections of the latest United Nations data. It has an average annual growth of 0.64%, with a gross national income per capita of $3,260, and a Human Development Index of 0.558. Number 22. Comoros. The Comoros is a volcanic archipelago of Africa's east coast in the warm Indian Ocean waters of the Mozambique Channel. Comoros is one of the least populous countries in the world, but it is one of the most densely populated, with a population of 837,614, based on projections of the latest United Nations data. It has an average annual growth of 0.64%, with a gross national income per capita of $3,260, and a Human Development Index of 0.558. 23. Mauritania. Mauritania, officially the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, is a sovereign state in northwest Africa. Fortunately, it is expected that there will be something of a significant drop in the population growth rate in Mauritania in the years to come. The current population of Mauritania is 4,743,279, based on projections of the latest United Nations data. It has an average annual growth of 0.79%, with a gross national income per capita of $5,530, and a Human Development Index of 0.556. 24. Benin. Benin, a French-speaking West African nation, is the birthplace of the Verde, also known as Voodoo religion, and home to the former Dahomey Kingdom from Circa. According to current projections, Benin's population will continue to grow throughout the rest of the century. The current population of Benin is 13,373,444, based on projections of the latest United Nations data. It has an annual average growth of 0.59%, with a gross national income per capita of $3,750, and a Human Development Index of 0.545. Thanks for watching to this point, Explorers. Please subscribe to our channel if you want to have more insight about the African continent. Do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to share with your friends.